Why do you speak in parables? What a great question. It really connects us to the humanity of the circumstances of the disciples, because we'd probably ask the same question. Why not just speak plainly? It helps to understand that teaching with parables is a form of teaching that actually predates Jesus by quite some time. And chances are that Jesus learned from parables himself, taught to him by the Blessed Mother and St. Joseph. Fables use the same technique, but they use animals and nature to personify ideas. Rabbits are fast, tortoises are slow. You don't need a backstory to get to the core of the message. But parables are about people, relationships, and situations, and they resonate with us because of a shared human experience. We use these stories every day, and for a very good reason. Studies have shown that our minds retain stories much better than they retain facts, which means that when we recall sowing seeds on inappropriate ground. But instead of making these stories less relatable, these little twists invite us to pay attention. This is something new. This is something I haven't heard before. Stories are sticky, and they stay with us, even in abbreviated forms. But that's not the reason Jesus gives to his disciples for teaching in parables. Not just because the farmer wouldn't sow on unsuitable land, but it's because of the nature of the parables themselves. In effect, the parable of the sower is a meta parable. It teaches us what parables do. When Jesus explains why he uses parables, he tells the disciple that some will hear but not understand, look but not see. In explaining the parable, he is giving us and the disciples the context and the key to sharing our faith with others. The key to sharing our faith is about building a relationship with Jesus, and the parable of the sower is about the conditions needed to bear much fruit. That is, to fully realize the potential of the seed and the potential of that relationship. It's not about the sower alone. That's very clear. The soil must be ready as well. Now, what the sower wants to do is pretty clear. In the first reading, God tells us through the prophet Isaiah, "My word will not return to me void, but shall do my will, achieving the end for which it was sent." And John the Evangelist tells us that Jesus is the Word, sent to achieve the purpose of calling us into relationship with him, with the living God. Jesus tells his disciples that the seed in this parable is the Word of God. It is an invitation to enter into relationship with God and make it rooted deep in our hearts. Jesus tells his disciples that they are indeed blessed to have insight into the Word because they are already in relationship with Jesus. They know Jesus. They have firsthand knowledge of who he is and what he wants. So they will see the parable from their perspective a little bit differently. The others do not know Jesus. They only hear the message and they don't understand it. They have ears but do not hear, and see but do not understand. In effect, the others have not yet entered into relationship and can't put those pieces together just yet. Now, just like when my grandmother spouted off aphorisms that didn't make sense, particularly lazy work twice, experience and age led me to begin to understand them and to really take them to heart. I learned the hard way that the lazy work twice because if you do it right the first time and not cut corners, you don't have to do it again. The parable of the sower, like these aphorisms, stay with us as we grow in our faith and our commitment to have a fruitful relationship with God. We can all relate to the process of this growth. We've all had moments when we're the soil, sometimes too involved in other things, and the word bounces off of us. We have moments of clarity and understanding, but sometimes we lack the commitment to follow through. Sometimes we get dug in and start to take root, but we get swamped by distractions and surrender to the weeds. And hopefully most of the time we are ready to take on the word and let it root deeply in our hearts and begin to bear fruit. We've also had moments when we're the sower. We felt frustrated when the message goes in one ear and out the other. We're disappointed when the message doesn't quite manage to survive its first challenge. We're sad when the message is overwhelmed by obstacles and circumstances. And we're elated when we see the message take root and bear fruit. Jesus teaches his disciples and us to appreciate the process of growing in relationship with him. When we are the sowers that spread the word, we must be aware that our fields are varied in preparation and that sometimes we may not see the results right away, but we must persevere in sowing. We can do our part to help others to get to that place where the word can take root and grow in our hearts by sharing our relationship with Jesus and our journey to get there, rocks, weeds, and all. We know that sometimes our hearts are the soil that receives the word. We should strive to keep them ready to receive the word that gives us purpose and meaning and will bear fruit. We have to take time to clear out the rocks that we carry in our hearts to open the way for the roots of relationship and let them take hold. And we have to be diligent in pulling out the thorns and weeds that choke our heart. In church speak, we call that going to confession. Most importantly, we must always remember that we, like the disciples, are blessed to be in the presence of the living God in the Eucharist. Because as Jesus told them, blessed are your eyes because they see, and your ears because they hear.